You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with my buddy, Jared Davis. It is time to talk about Auburn's bowl game. We're going to be talking about some other items as well, as far as coordinator, all of that as well. And Jared, how you doing? How are you feeling about us going to the Birmingham Bowl?
What's going on, man? Good to be back, War Eagle. And yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, at the end of the day, really, I've kind of started coming to the conclusion about bowl games. I mean, they just feel like they matter less and less as far as the actual game. So it's more about more prep time for the players. So, and, 6-6, you're not going to get a great bowl, so you might as well get one close where you can get the fans there, have a great atmosphere, and just try to finish this thing out with a victory.
Yeah, I think I had come to grips with it when we came to the end of our season and had a 4-game losing streak. When that happens, I mean, you're probably not getting a great bowl, and at least we have a bowl. I still think it's a little weird that we got matched up with Houston, who's 11-2. But, I think that shows how much the committee or, whoever chose this, valued Auburn's strength of schedule and, how hard we have played in the games that we've done well. So I think there's some value in that. And I mean, hey, right now Vegas is favoring Auburn by 3 points over Houston, which, honestly, I wouldn't have said that, but maybe that's then maybe they're kind of valuing we're probably going to have home field advantage in Birmingham compared to the fans from Houston driving all the way over or flying over to Birmingham for that. Jared, I did want to get your thoughts on, how you think we got here, just high level. How do you think we might go from the playoffs, be in the playoffs potentially if we win out the season, to we're going to the Birmingham Bowl, which I think is, if anything, kind of a letdown, but it is extra practice. It's, we get to be in a bowl, which, I'm not going to take for granted because there's a lot of teams out there that are not. But how do you think we got from, this high point of thinking to, we're down at the bottom, it feels like, as far as Auburn fans?
Yeah, I think the Alabama game showed us that it's a real fine line between, having a really good season and having an average season. In the SEC, that, it's a real fine line because, we go 6-6 and we really should have beaten Alabama. And Alabama just went on to win, just destroy Georgia's, vaunted defense. So, I don't think we're as far away as people think. However, we don't have the depth that is needed, and I don't think we have that winning. Winning is an attitude, and I'm not knocking Gus, but there were times where it's like, oh yeah, 8-4 is not. He's even made the comment before. I think 8-4 is not terrible, and so I feel like you got to have that mentality of, okay, we're going to go out there and win every single game. And I'm not knocking Gus, but I think it is a little mind shift of, hey, we expect to win. We got to get to that point where we expect to win every game, and also from the depth perspective, the South Carolina game was strictly depth. We lose Bo. I know we had TJ, but we lose Bo. We lost Kobe Hudson, and we basically lost our offense.
Yeah.
And that's why we had a 4-game losing streak. So I think at the end of it, let's build more depth in certain areas. Realize that we're not far off, believe it or not. We're not far. Now you can't go further back, which is always a possibility. But if we build on what we got, we were, like you said, AJ, if we finish that Mississippi State half, we got South Carolina and Bama left, and we might be in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's you look back at all the what ifs. I look at so many what ifs just in the Iron Bowl, but I just don't think we're too far off, to be honest with you. We got to build on it, but I don't think we're too far off. That's my thoughts on it. What are yours?
Yeah, and I think besides for next year, I'm thinking about next year even, and our season besides going to Athens and to Tuscaloosa to play Georgia and Bama, I think it sets up pretty well. It's not the best schedule ever, but I think it sets up pretty well for us to have some success. And you just got to flip, one of those away games that are potentially a really tough one, and you're talking about a great season there. And I think Auburn, especially if they return a few key players, I think that can definitely happen. I did want to kind of talk about some of the transfers that have jumped into the transfer portal. We did see Sean Shivers, which honestly I didn't even considering him for transferring. I just thought, hey, he'd graduate. I mean, he's already graduated. Go, try his, maybe try in the NFL. But hey, he's being smart. He's using his COVID year, and honestly, I think that's a really cool way to get an extra year in there for a guy who, just by his size, I don't know if the NFL is really going to like him, but he's an athlete, and maybe he makes a name for himself at another school this next year. I will definitely be watching him and following him along wherever he goes. We also had Elijah Canyon, one of our wide receivers who, I mean, Jared, you and I were thinking this guy could be our top receiver for Auburn. And then we didn't get a lot out of him this year. And that kind of, I think, was the writing on the wall enough for him that he just needed to go somewhere else. And then we also had Caleb Johnson, and though I had heard like he had potentially some off the field issues. So that one honestly didn't shock me that much that he was ended up leaving. And then we also had Tayshawn Manning, who is an offensive guard, entering the transfer portal. I think that one hurt pretty bad just because he did have a few starts at the end of the season. And then we had Ladarius Tennyson, who got into the transfer portal. And he, at the end of the season, had a few games where he started when Zion Puckett got injured. So there were a handful of players in there that had, some significant play time that jumped into the portal this year. Jared, of these, kind of which ones do you think will make the biggest impact leaving Auburn?
As far as being able to do well themselves, or biggest impact on Auburn?
Biggest impact on Auburn.
Probably Tennyson. And I just felt like, I mean, he even had that game where he actually got called out by Harsin for like praising. And Harson's, I get the impression Harson's a guy that really, he doesn't vocalize a lot of that. And I was kind of surprised he praised Tennyson.
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't do a whole lot of, I mean, yeah, every once in a while, if it's a pointed question, he'll call out somebody, but I felt like he kind of went out of his way, which I think
he did.
That says something.
He went out of his way to praise Tennyson, and maybe there was rumblings Tennyson was, not happy, and so maybe Harsin did that on purpose to kind of like, hey, we like you, but I don't think it was. I think it was legit. I think it was earned that game because he did step in and play well. So I would say he's probably the biggest impact. I was surprised with the same with you on Shivers. I thought Shivers was like done. Like, okay, you're either going to the pros or not making the pros. I didn't realize he could still transfer, but good for him. He'll be a legend forever for that run in the Iron Bowl. Other than that, I mean, I don't know that we need to be losing offensive linemen, but then again, maybe we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
So Tayshawn Manning, I don't know, and Caleb Johnson, I don't think either one of those are going to be huge impacts.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw offensive linemen jump into the portal, I was like, oh crap, what's going on? But I think this could also be out with the old linemen that, I mean, have been average, if maybe slightly above average at best, to let's start from scratch almost for this next year. So I want to see kind of how this offensive line in this next year kind of shapes up once we start getting these early enrollees or early signees in this upcoming signing period.
I will say this. I'm not surprised at this point because it just never manifested, but watching film of Elijah Canyon and then the last year's bowl game, he did look like a pretty good receiver.
Yeah.
But I trust the coaches. We all the fans want to say, we need to start so-and-so. We need to do this and that. And I mean, unless they're trying to get their buyout, these coaches want to win. So they're seeing stuff at practice that we don't see. And so I trust that they made the right decision on this and there was something there. But I am a little surprised that Elijah, not that he's transferring. I'm surprised he got to this point, but now that we're here, no, I'm not surprised he's leaving.
Yeah, definitely. I did also want to mention a couple just outstanding players that I know we're going to miss. Roger McCreary, he's kind of made his way up. I think the Alabama game, with how many eyes were on that game and how well Roger McCreary did against probably a top level wide receiver in Mechie and other wide receivers that he went up against Bama. I think he was already, I feel like in my mind, kind of a first rounder, but he's kind of edging into that, top echelon of players that might get drafted and kind of the top 15 range, which I think is pretty incredible.
Would you see where Sean McVay? Sean McVay has him at number 13 now.
Wow, that's crazy. And I think that's probably only, if I had to guess, probably only behind Stingley from LSU.
He's the second defensive back, but let me tell you how crazy people want to say, oh, the SEC's overrated. He is number 13. He would be the 7th C player on the board. That's how competitive the league is. Yeah,
I think both Stingley and McCreary have both kind of showed out in college, and I'm looking forward to see what they end up doing in the NFL. Especially McCreary, like you can tell that when he came, especially under Kevin Steele, I feel like Kevin Steele's system fit Roger McCreary. And what I thought was also kind of cool is Derek Mason with Roger McCreary didn't say, oh, we're going to make you do things that you're not great at. We're going to use your strengths, which he is a man-on-man defensive back. He is great at that, and use him in that fashion. And I thought that was pretty cool to see that Roger was used that way under Derek Mason, who likes to use a little bit more zone. I did also want to mention, and at this point, we don't know if Zakoby McClain is going to the NFL. I think more than likely he will, but if by chance he comes back, he could use, kind of like Sean Shivers did, that extra COVID year. I think that would be awesome. I feel like if he doesn't get enough, a good enough kind of read on where he'd be drafted in the NFL, he might get drafted, but he might not. And if he doesn't, or, it doesn't have a real good shot, I would love to have him back. Maybe it's just a pipe dream, but that would be nice to have. I did want to kind of mention, because Pro Football Focus did their all SEC team. And, we were just talking about Zakoby McClain, but he got an honorable mention in it, which honestly, why the heck is he not, first, second, or third team? Like, dude, have you watched any Auburn football? Because he knows, his ability is just insane for a linebacker. Even though he's not the biggest dude, he's still out there making tackles. He knows how to stop dudes. So I just did not get that one. And maybe that's a little chip on his shoulder that he ends up coming back.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Pro Football Focus also had in their first team, Roger McCreary. Second team was both Smoke Monday and Oscar Chapman. Third team was Keandre Jones. And then honorable mentions, like I said, Zacoby McClain, Tank Bigsby, and Colby Wooden. So Auburn had some pretty good standouts there in the All SEC from Pro Football Focus.
Your man, Oscar Chapman. I tell you. What year is he? He had a phenomenal year. Is he a sophomore? What is he?
He might honestly be a sophomore because this is only his second year at Auburn. Let's look him up.
Yeah, he did like the blue shirt thing. Did we ever clarify what that even was last year? I don't know. I felt like we blue shirted him, whatever that meant. So I don't know if that meant like he didn't have to go towards scholarship last year, but he did this year.
Yeah, he's technically a sophomore right now.
Okay. He had a great year. I was very pleased with, what he did. He almost been Bama inside the 5 4 times last year. You know, that's just,
And he was doing his job throughout the season. Like we talked about it. Most games was averaging over 45 yards a punt. And most of the time, nobody was returning on him. Like there were a few times where the kickoff returner or punt returner had any chance. He was just kicking it away from them, which I thought was awesome.
Did you see two different players a little different? There was a report I read where Anders Carlson is considering coming back, as is Schenker.
Really?
So, yep. Nothing confirmed on that, but I did see two reports where those two guys are considering coming back. So I know we got the stud kicker out of Fort Payne coming next year.
Yeah.
But you don't want necessarily a true freshman having to, step into some away games and make some kicks that we might need. So it'd be good for him to learn under Carlson for another year.
Yeah. Well, with Carlson having ACL surgery, I'd be really curious to see how the NFL kind of rates him, because honestly, this last season, it wasn't, his best season as a kicker.
Well, that's what the article, what I said, it read was he wanted to come back in and try to improve his draft grade, which is crazy because kickers really don't honestly get drafted that much. His brother was kind of an anomaly. They do get drafted. He got drafted like, what didn't he get drafted like 3rd or 4th round? It was something crazy, which never happens. But yeah, if we get him and Schenker were to come back, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, I would love that so much. To have him back. That's just, we need that to have. I don't know if we need it. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but
you got the senior leadership on the offense, which would be Schenker, really.
Yeah,
that could be a huge help.
And he's a good blocker, but as well as has good hands. Like I feel like we need wide receivers, and I feel like we'll start to see after this early signing period which wide receivers we end up landing, because it's pretty obvious that's one of our weak points. And I think we could definitely improve on that.
Well, speaking real quick, we won't go into every recruit, but just some exciting news today. There is a 4-star receiver out of Oregon who we worked really hard on, and it came down to us in Oregon, and it is now thought, of course, he has not signed it, but it is now thought because of Cristobal going to Miami that we will land this guy. So that would be nice. Add a 4-star wide receiver. We'll take them.
I would absolutely love that. We could use some of those high-star wide receivers to come in and just provide an immediate impact for these for our team. We would just need it. I did want to kind of shift a little bit and end this discussion around offensive coordinator. So since Jared and I last recorded, Mike Bobo got fired or resigned or whatever you want to call it, and now we are kind of in a spot where we're trying to figure out. At this point, we're about a week out from not having an offensive coordinator. And Jared, I want to get your thoughts on where you think we're at with that, and who maybe is kind of bubbled up to the top from what you're hearing.
Yeah, I don't know any sources whatsoever, so I'm relying on the internet. But from what I gather, it's basically Zach Hill's job to lose, and he's the offensive coordinator at Arizona State. He was Harson's offensive coordinator at Boise State before he went to Arizona State. The only thing with him is Arizona State is in a little bit of an investigation with the NCAA for apparently, I guess, hosting players during COVID protocol.
Yeah.
And so I think the rumor is we're trying to clarify that he's okay and going to be cleared on that. That's the rumor. If it's not him, you keep hearing names like he's the running backs coordinator at Georgia, but he played at Auburn. Personally, if it were me, not knowing anything about behind the scenes, I would go after Jeff Grimes at Baylor. Auburn connections. He's the one that built that ridiculous offensive line from 2013. And I think he just put Baylor at number one in the offense in the Big 12. I will say real quick, because not a lot of people are big on Zach Hill. I don't know a lot about him. This year they had injuries, but last year I think he took them from like 100 plus in offense to, if I'm not mistaken, they were top 25 in offense last year. So
that's a big improvement.
Yeah. So, and Hardison knows him, and right or wrong, coaches like to go with familiar. Hardison got this job off of what he did at Boise, so he's probably trying to recreate that.
Yeah, and do it at the next level in a Power 5, Auburn team. So, yeah, I mean, some other kind of pipe dream ones that I keep seeing, and these are pretty hilarious in my mind. I don't think we have a chance. Is Joe Brady, who just got fired at Carolina, at the Panthers. Highly doubt that one happens. But maybe if we get desperate, maybe we shoot him a line, but highly doubt it. And one of the more recent ones, and this was kind of it's a troll from Lane Kiffin, was he had posted a picture of the Auburn airport, which, that's Lane Kiffin just being a troll and, doing things that he loves doing. So I just had to laugh at it. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I think as far as Joe Brady goes, he's interesting because you see a lot of people there. It's like 50-50 with him. I thought everybody would love him, but people are like, well, he was just the pass game coordinator for LSU that year, and he also had a team full of NFL players. So I would take him in a heartbeat, but I don't know that it would be a guarantee. I don't know that it'd be the lock that everybody thinks it would be, but I would absolutely be worth taking. It would be worth taking the risk because, I mean, if Bo comes back, you give him Bo. I mean, Bo's got all the tools, man. He just needs probably some better play calls and some more wide receiver weapons.
Yeah, I think those two pieces come together, and Bo. I mean, we're talking about Bo from a different perspective. That Bo's. I mean, the joke about. Or not the joke, the phrase, he's, the Dark Horse Heisman, like, come on, like, if you have the right pieces, I think Bo has all of the tools to do it.
Absolutely. And I've been very hard on Bo, not much on here, but I think Bo absolutely matured last year. Super pleased with him. None of that season was his fault, and really hope he comes back, and I hope we can protect him and give him some weapons to throw to, because really think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it before, but I think Bo's ceiling is higher than most quarterbacks. Just his ability to elude, but also pass pretty darn well. Yeah, sure, he'll have the occasional overthrow of a deep ball, but really, how many college quarterbacks have you watched that do that? Most of them, pretty much most of them, besides the top elite ones that are probably going to get drafted.
Yeah, out of the, if you gave me the field or Bo, like anybody, I mean, I might take C.J. Stroud. I would take Bryce Young. I hate to say that, but other than that, there's not much. I mean, I might take Bo against the field. I mean, I think he's got that potential.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to be said for a guy who just knows how to win. Like he's got that fire under him. And yeah, I know we haven't won all of our games this year. A lot of it you might be able to point back to Bo, but honestly, I think that this year you could probably even stronger points out the offensive line and wide receivers. And it's the way they've not run the right routes or drop passes. I mean, just there's lots of things to point to that kind of, I mean, Bo, obviously he's a quarterback. He's going to take the blame for a lot of it, but there's a lot of other factors that kind of led into this.
But Bo didn't give up 40 unanswered points to Mississippi State. He didn't even play in South Carolina, and I can't find a single person with half a brain that would say Auburn wouldn't have beaten Alabama with Bo. So,
right,
yeah, I mean, I think, let's bring him back.
Yeah. Any other kind of final thoughts about Auburn's bowl game or offensive coordinator discussion?
About the bowl, I didn't say this earlier. Listen, I'd love to go out with a win. I don't put a lot of stock in bowl games. It's more about player development, and they scare me because honestly, how many players are going to opt out, and I don't blame them. How many players are going to be there? We got transfer portal guys. We got players that are going to the NFL. The last I heard, TJ Finley was in a boot, after the Bama game. Who's our quarterback, So, we were a 3-point favorite. And I think if Jacoby and Smoke play, maybe, because we can probably stop them. But I don't know if those guys play, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about the game itself. My game plan would be if Tank does play, my game plan would be what it should have been in South Carolina. Just try to hand the ball off and overpower a group of 5 team and see if you can get out of there with a win.
Well, and the little bit of research that I have done on Houston is the 2 losses that they have had were against teams that ran the ball effectively against them, like 200 yards a game in both of their losses. And that's something that I think Tank combined with Jarquez Hunter and company could do. I just think that there's the capability there, and that would be a cool way to win, come out. And I think that would be a good way for this team to finish kind of on a good note when it feels like, you lose the last 4 games, even though you played well against Bama. I feel like the morale of the team isn't at where you'd probably hope it would be after the first year.
Do you think we see Demetrius Davis?
Ooh, I would love to see D Davis at quarterback. I think if TJ Finley doesn't play, maybe we go to him just to give him some extra reps. I mean, unless we legitimately think we go with Grant Loy, and Grant Loy is our next best option, which maybe he is. I mean, when he's come in, I mean, he looks like he can kind of play that role as a game manager. But I would love to see D Davis. We haven't seen him this year, right? I don't think we've even seen him for one play. So
he played at A-Day, but that's it. No, we have not seen him in a game.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he's burning a red shirt or anything. I mean, they have 4 games to play with freshmen. So yeah, use them. It's not going to burn a red shirt. I don't know.
See, that's where I'm torn. Do you go? All right. So from a fan perspective, you want to win the game, and the players need to win too. But it's do you go in there and literally use this as almost like a glorified A-Day where you see what you got for next year? Or do you go in there and try to win the ball game? And you want to try to win the ball game. You know what I'm saying? Do you play if you felt like Grant Lloyd gave you a better chance to win the bowl game, but Grant Lloyd's not even on the team next year, do you go that route, or do you go and see what you have for next year?
That's a good question. I mean, I could go either way. I mean, I think it just depends on what the coaches are feeling. Oh man, if I was them, I would say this is a perfect time to have Demetrius Davis in there. But I see what they're wanting, that final win, especially in Birmingham where it's going to be like a home field advantage. So, and for all we know, maybe TJ Finley, comes back out there, and by the time, I mean, we've almost got a month, 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks now, until we go out there and play. Maybe his ankle's good to go and he can play. But
well, and to clarify, so apparently he was at a basketball game with Tank in a boot, and then somebody else claims they saw him playing basketball at the rec center. So, who knows?
I mean, they're college kids. Let's be honest. They're just gonna. I mean, I did it. If I was slightly injured, I'd just go out there and play. I don't care. It's part of it. All right, Jared. Before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.